270.
We've made it to stream 10.
Indeed. It's also kind of wild that we've been doing this for 70 days now.
Yeah.
I know, right? No
2
bands
months.
yet.
That's because we're too small to be
We're
banned.
too small, indeed.
You'd figure the AI would have caught it.
Well, it did catch it. That's why we're blacklisted.
Oh, we're blacklisted?
Oh,
Or
probably.
blacklisted.
I mean, the fact that literally not a single person shows up in the stream, either that means Twitch is dying, which it isn't,
Or
that we're
blacklisted,
blacklisted.
Yeah, makes sense. Start your
To
free
continue
1 month
reading this
trial.
article, fuck off, Telegraph.
Ugh.
Alright, so we'll just take this article then, go to archive. Excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Probably Incorrect, episode 10. We have been unbanned for 70 days. Somehow. And the first article we're going to talk about today is why Anglo-Saxons aren't real and they can't hurt you.
Yeah, no, yes we are.
And just in case anyone was curious that this was like a meme article, it's not. It's real. It's posted by the Telegraph. It's real. It's here. And just in case anyone was thinking, oh, maybe this is an old article. No, it's not. Posted June 3rd, literally today, about 3 hours ago.
Man, it's talking about something that Cambridge is telling its students, not that the Telegraph is saying.
Yes, that is fair as well. Yes, to be clear, this Telegraph is not saying this. It is saying Cambridge College,
which we all know,
University.
We all know our schooling has been corrupted long ago.
Yes. Anglo-Saxons aren't real. Cambridge University tells students to fight nationalism. University aims to dismantle the myths around being British and English as it seeks to make its teaching anti-racist.
I mean, you're pretty racist when you're saying all of Britain don't exist.
Oh no, but that's okay.
And then America, and Australia, who is descended from those Anglo-Saxon.
Yes, no, we don't exist at all.
It's okay to be racist against white people. You can't be racist against
Wrong.
white people.
I mean,
black Anglo-Saxons. So
this is just a really clear indication that this is just blatant, not even hiding it anymore. It's an obvious tell now. Anti-racism means anti-white.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, fully mask off at this point. They don't give a fuck.
Fully mask off. There is no hiding it. They literally say we're being anti-racist. That's why white people don't exist. It's like, okay, well.
And I'm guessing I'm gonna look up and see if I can find which teacher is teaching this. If it's a white one that's doing it to its own people.
Tinbrook says their name ends in Steinberg or something along those lines. And it's probably more than one class teaching that shit, Cass.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If it's the university's standpoint, it's not even one class teaching it. It's the whole fucking shebang.
Yeah, because there've got to be more than one history classes, more than one history teacher.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't see how you can get away with blatantly teaching historical inaccuracy in a class anymore.
I don't know either, because it gets worse. They are teaching students that Anglo-Saxons are not an ethnic group.
That they literally are.
No, not an ethnic group anymore. Britain's early medieval history is taught by the Department of Anglo-Saxon, but the terms within its own title are being addressed as part of its efforts to make it anti-racist, and they must dismantle the basis of myths of nationalism by explaining that Anglo-Saxon is not an ethnic group, but a culture. That
Yes,
anyone,
a culture shared by those of the
that
Anglo-Saxon
anyone can be a part
ethnicity.
of.
No.
The department's approach was, oh my god. The department's approach also aims to show that there is no such thing as Scottish, Irish, or Welsh ethnic identities.
Those people would like to have words with you.
The increased focus on anti-racism.
Anti-racism?
This is just full mask off. This is just full mask off. Holy shit.
Yep, full mask.
Racism?
Scottish,
Remember,
Irish, and
racism is
Anglo-Saxon people don't exist. This is why we're anti-racist. Okay.
So they want to erase our racial identity, claim we don't exist. We never actually had a culture of our own. This is another case of white people never actually made anything. Historically,
Yeah.
If the Irish don't exist, how do you explain Irish whiskey? Ha.
If the Irish don't exist, then how do we have a president?
Well,
how do we have car bombs?
Anybody could, make whiskey. It's just the people from the area that you call Ireland made this particular whiskey. Anybody who lives in Ireland can claim to have made that whiskey.
The people of the area. Oh my god, they're absolutely going to use that sort of phrasing too.
People of the area, yep.
People of the area.
No longer citizens of a nation, it's people of an area. Because your nation doesn't exist.
Oh, of course, they had to remove nationalism.
Oh my god.
It is El Pano.
This is really starting to make me run out of it is what it is, and we're not even 10 minutes in.
You are running dangerously low on is what it is. Are you sure you wish to continue?
If I continue, it's going to be with violence, so I'm not sure.
I'm completely out of it is what it is.
We have detected an extremely low amount of is what it is. Oh god,
that shit's on back order. They don't make it anymore.
Yeah, sorry, I just got a call back from the is what it is store. Looks like they're sold out and they're not restocking.
What? You know what? This is actually fitting. Everyone's running out of it is what it is because of shit like this, and it's the anniversary of the Killdozer. Yes. Sounds like we need number 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yes.
Oh, Killdozer.
There have been several advancements in drone technology since. You wouldn't even need to man a dozer.
No,
it's time for Killdozer V2 Drone Edition. You give the you craft the AI. You tell it gets points for every house it runs over.
Points for every house, every car, every person.
Also, the police want to delete it.
The top score is the White House.
The police want to delete it, and it gets points for every house it runs over.
Mm-hmm.
And points assigned based on the quote-unquote color of the people that run over.
Yes, indeed. Oh, God.
Which is a nice segue.
Yeah.
Just teeing you up there.
Yeah. We'll segue in a second because we're only a third through the article. There's no way it can't get worse. It's gonna get worse. It's probably gonna get worse.
It's gonna get
It will
worse.
get worse.
Elements being expanded, blah blah blah. Concerns over the term of Anglo-Saxon being used recently to connect to an English-based identity.
Mm.
Yeah.
So they're claiming there is no English-based identity?
In general, we seek to dismantle the myths of British, English, Scottish, Welsh, and Irish people, as well as them having a ancient or ethnic identity.
Remember, Lenin put this down, and his list of shit to do to get rid of the West was destroy their statues, destroy their history, teach them wrong, turn them against each other. Yeah, all part of the plan.
Yep. One lecture addresses how the use of the term has been embroiled in indigenous race politics by questioning the extent of settlement by a distinct ethnic group that could be theoretically called Anglo-Saxon.
Theoretically.
Oh, you motherfuckers.
So, my favorite part about this entire fucking thing is that the reason why they're dismantling these identities is because people are now using it to say, oh, well, we're indigenous to Britain. And they're scrambling now to be like, no one's indigenous to Britain, the blacks are!
So basically what you're saying is that there is so many refugees and foreigners in there, like how I've brought up in the past, where it's trying to get their own holidays as celebrated instead
and people are using the indigenous peoples route to fight against it because they're saying, well, we're indigenous to Britain, so you can't get rid of our stuff because we're the indigenous tribe.
Yes, we can, because there's no such thing as...
And so, yeah, now they're responding with, well, there's no such thing as being British.
Well, you don't exist. There's no such thing as Anglo-Saxon people. So, yeah, it's okay to destroy your culture because you don't exist in the first place.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is all intentional.
Also, like, really, what is the period when you become indigenous? Because honestly, like, a couple generations, I would say, at max, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's like one or two
I would say 4 or 5 generations in Britain, you are British.
No, you know what I would say? I would say no living relatives from another country.
Yes.
Even like distant ones, like cousins and stuff that veered off.
Yeah, I would say and or. So we'll go with no immediate family.
Yeah.
Of direct
so no
line.
No grandparents, great grandparents,
and at least 3 generations. So you at least have to have a great grandparent that was born in the country.
On both sides to be fully British. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say because you can still consider 50% to be indigenous. Like they still do that. So I would say you at least have to have a line.
Thank God I'm still Australian.
Of at least going back to your grandparents, of having been born there. And you cannot have...
Thank God I'm still Australian. Yeah. Thank you, Dad's dad. Thank you, Grandpa.
Yeah. Because it's just like, at that point, you know, when your grandparent was born in that country, sure, maybe you might use a smattering at best of the language of the country you came from, but you're probably not.
No,
most likely not. That's like
unless you're one of those people like the ones I work with that have lived in Australia for 15 years and can still barely speak English and can't be understood.
Okay, but see, that's the difference though. Lived in Australia, there's a major difference there because, like, I've talked to people that were born in the U.S. Their parents came from Mexico. They were born in the U.S. And yeah, sure, they're fluent in Spanish because their parent refuses to learn English despite traveling to the U.S., but whatever, we're not going to get into that. But they use English primarily.
Oh no, I'm not talking about traveling to the Australia. This person has worked.
No, I'm not saying traveling. I said moved.
moved, yeah. But this person has worked around people, talked to people, had to help people, and
no.
barely
Again, so again, this situation, as I was doing IT, the lady calls me. She speaks only Spanish. She tries to get me to speak Spanish to her. I say no. She puts her daughter, who does not work for the company, on the phone so she can act as a translator for the two of us.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. This lady has worked, according to the daughter, in the country for 16 years and refuses to learn English.
Yeah, at that point, that's just willful refusal to join the society you
Oh, her-
claim to have joined.
And you know how I know the daughter wasn't joking? Because
How?
she was talking shit about her mom to me.
And she didn't understand.
She was
And
just
she
like, I fucking hate her. She does this all the time. I'm just sitting there trying to hold in my laughter. Because, the daughter was fucking pissed off. Because she was like, she just constantly does this where she needs me to translate something in English for her. And she just refuses to learn English. She's been here for 16 years. I'm like, well,
They want people to bend to them, not the other way around.
Despite, traveling to a fucking separate country that speaks a different language.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the problem is we let people get away with it.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. We absolutely shouldn't, but is what it is.
Is not what it is.
Is what it is.
It is not.
But anyway, so the reason why I'm bringing this up, right, is because, like, if you have a grandparent that is born in this country, where do they send you? Because, theoretically, if you're not indigenous, right, they can deport you somewhere, right? You agree with that statement? If you're not indigenous, that means there is some place for you to go back to.
Yes.
Okay, so where do you send me?
Jersey becomes quarantine state.
Yes, exactly.
But great grandparents.
But say in some theory they're like, oh, we gotta get rid of.
There's enough mobsters in New Jersey. You go to Italy.
Right, but say the U.S. decided to enact a program saying all non-indigenous must now leave the U.S. Right? Say they somehow enacted that sort of program, right?
They would if they count the indigenous as the Native Americans.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, though. But that's the point. That's why I framed everything. Come on, keep up. So they say everyone non-indigenous must leave the U.S. Okay, so where do I go?
Britain, but that doesn't exist anymore.
But I'm not British.
Germany.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even like we're going to ignore everything literally else. I'm not German.
Yeah. You are technically.
I'm like 30% Dutch, and that's like the most genetic history I have in terms of profile.
I hope you like the Dutch, I guess, according to wokeness.
Yeah, but it's just like, okay, it's like I'm 30% Dutch, I'm like 20% Scottish or some shit, and like, 16% not Irish, Italian. I'm like 10% Irish. It's like
too difficult. This is too difficult. They'll just ship you to Australia like they did in the past.
Probably, but. You see my point, though, right? Where it's like, where the fuck am I supposed to go? I speak English, and I don't have any, I'm not 100% Italian, so they can't just be like, oh, well, you're just Italian, so go back to Italy.
Well, it doesn't matter because all these are white ethnic states, so it's not racist to do this.
Well, I'm aware, but you understand my point. If I'm not indigenous, then what am I? Because I'm not German, I'm not Dutch, I'm not fucking Italian. Like, these are all minority clusters of my ancestral history, so I'm not a majority of anything. So
they just send you to the one of your choosing, probably, or pick one out of a hat.
Yeah, exactly, though. But it's like, well, it's not like I can just be sent back to fucking the Netherlands, right? And I'll just be like, oh, well, I'm in the Netherlands now. I guess I'll just go back to speaking Deutsch.
No.
Yeah.
Don't grasp that.
Yeah.
Of course not. But, that's my point, though. Is like, oh, so the article goes on to talk about how Cambridge is justifying this by saying that the fall of the Roman Britain, Norman conquest, Germanic peoples, and Anglo-Saxons and Jutes arrived, forged new kingdoms. And so it's like, oh well, these people technically aren't indigenous then. And it's like it's been, a good 1200,
years.
yeah, not even
Yeah.
2000-ish years. The fall of Norman Britain. That was like before Christ, wasn't it?
Mm,
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see, fall of
was-
Roman Britain.
The
Roman
fall of
Britain?
Roman
I was
Britain.
like, I know they gave up Britain. Okay,
on.
400 C.
409.
I think the fall of I think it might have been, or it was just around the same time.
Yeah, Anno Domini. Yeah, so around
Yeah.
410. So they've been
Yeah.
roughly on that location for 1600 years, which is amusingly enough around the same period of time the Sami people have moved into Scandinavia in. So if the British aren't indigenous to Britain because they've only been there for 1600 years, then the Sami people aren't indigenous to Scandinavia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can't say that. That's racist against Sami people.
Well, good, because I don't like them. Recently, this term has been embroiled in controversy because it's being used by racists to support the idea of an ancient white English identity.
That is literally English identity.
But it is. I mean, if we're gonna go term, okay, let's Google this. What can be termed ancient? Right? Ancient.
How does it have to be ancient?
The difference between grave robbing and archaeology.
Basically.
Let's see.
Of many years. There's no specific.
How
year
old is ancient?
Yeah.
Ancient history refers to a period of time before 500 AD.
So then, that qualifies.
Yeah, it's 100 years before 500 AD, which means there is an ancient English identity.
There is depending on the continent, the era generally falls between the years 200 to 600. And 1200 to 1500, depending on the civilization.
What?
That's what I'm finding.
Finding what?
Time to 500. I'm mainly finding between 2 to 600 AD, basically in between there. There's a gap. Because apparently some civilizations count ancient as, but mainly between there.
Okay, well,
it's just based on Roman history, so
yeah.
So anyway, there we go. So there we have it. There is an ancient English identity.
Yeah.
So they're wrong and they're blatantly lying.
Yes. In 2019, the International Society of Anglo-Saxonism voted to change its name to the International Society of Medieval England in recognition of the problem of the term Anglo-Saxon. Because there was, what, minority amounts of Anglo-Saxons in England in the early medieval times?
No, I'm pretty sure they were all the majority.
I'm pretty sure they were the only thing in Britain.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there any other population besides Anglo-Saxon in Britain. Now, keep in mind, I'm saying Britain, not England. This is an important difference because at that point in time, the Welsh were in their Welsh lands, the Scottish were in the Scottish lands.
Yes,
I'm specifically talking about Britain. Yeah, Britannia.
Britain was, yeah,
specifically talking about that. So, in terms of Britannia's population, it turns out that 100% of Britannia's population, margin of error 1%, which is being extremely generous, mind you, for a census data, which is a guy just walking around checking off, yeah, there was about 12 people here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So margin of error 1%. There's 100% people who are British in Britannia during the time of early medieval period.
Oh, hell, Britannia.
Oh, Britannia.
Because I'm sorry, but you can't say, oh, well, there was black people in Britain because one black guy was there. It's like, well, margin of error says he was the only black guy. You know?
There might have been like 100 black people there. Still,
Maybe.
That's 1% or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not exactly the proportions of population you were looking for.
No. Not the population they want to pretend there was.
The Anglo-Saxon myth perpetuates a false idea what it means to be native to Britain, having existed there since the ancient periods of time.
They're talking about being white, Sneaky. They're saying British white.
I'm aware. Studying Anglo-Saxons is a field of inherent whiteness. Okay.
Yeah, no shit it is, because it is literally white history.
Yeah. Yeah, but white people don't have history.
Oh, yeah, no, of course we don't have history. We've never had history.
Yep, never had history once in our lives. Alright, there we go. An American import. While some have argued that a single term like Anglo-Saxon is inaccurate, as the Dark Ages were periods of population change because of the Vikings, others, such as Professor Howard at the university, maintain the term is useful historically and archaeologically because there was a shared culture among them all.
Shared culture was that? I'm pretty sure there was one culture, and that was Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it was the Angles and there's the Saxons, and then they kind of mixed together and turned into a shared culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saxony was a thing.
A lot of the. Yeah, true. Saxony was, although it was very similar.
Yes,
Wait, was Saxony similar to the Anglos?
they were similar enough that they could blend without too much of an issue. I mean, only a couple of wars, but
I know a lot of the Saxons, what's it called? Believed in like Odin and all that under the name Woden and stuff, I believe. Or was that a different?
Woden, and yes, it's Odin.
Yeah, I was thinking, was that the Saxons, or am I getting mixed up with another fucking ancient civilization?
So you know why it's called England, right? England.
Yeah, the land of the Angles.
Yeah, land of the Angles, exactly.
Yeah, you're a robot right now, so basically no one can understand you but me.
Yeah.
So, land of the Angles. Yes, exactly.
Angles,
Can you
yes.
understand me better?
Yes.
Yeah, no,
and then the Saxons.
Your country is literally named for this. How can you deny it's a thing?
Easily.
Apparently.
But yeah, the Saxons were used by Vortigern to try and defeat King Arthur or something like that, I remember. And then after Arthur, they kind of went together and combined into the Anglo-Saxons.
Yep.
Or during his reign, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, point being is that, Native Americans are in fact not native. They're the steppe people that moved over the ice bridge, and a great way to make them super pissed off is by saying that out loud to them.
Well, either pissed off or laughing their ass off in agreement.
Call them Eurasian tribes.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the same thing with the Sami people. They are also steppe.
They're basically cousins to the Mongols.
Yep.
Help me, step settler, I'm stuck.
Yeah.
The term Anglo-Saxon is an American import.
No, it's fucking not.
It's not.
Well, actually, technically, with the Americans, a lot of them being descendants from British colonizers, technically you can say yes. for some of them.
No,
No,
But,
literally, it's not. The term Anglo-Saxon was used for
originated in
literally.
England
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
centuries. And long before America was ever
Yeah.
founded, Anglo-Saxon was a term.
Mm.
The Anglo-Saxon peoples is what they used to call themselves.
I want to see the comments. I can't see the comments. Oh.
Of course not.
Can we see the
I
comments?
don't have comments disabled.
Go away. Can I not see? I can't see the comments if I'm not a
Nate.
subscriber. Cringe.
Yep, every time.
Every time. So anyway, speaking of
Yeah.
which, honestly, this can lead into two different topics, and I'm not sure which one I want to do more. I think we're going to do the AI one first.
Yep.
So AI-controlled drone goes rogue, kills human operator in a simulated test. So this is a key part here. This is simulated. The drone didn't
Simulated.
actually kill anyone, but it did various amounts of things. They tried to patch the rules on it, and I don't know what the fuck they were thinking on this one, because like they're like, oh god, it killed the operator. All right, so we're gonna add a new rule to the AI. You can't kill the operator. And then it's like, okay, so I can't kill the operator. I'll just destroy all his equipment. You
Yes.
can't kill his equipment. Alright, so I'll destroy the building holding his equipment. You can't target the building. I'll target the grid coordinates. You can't target the grid coordinate.
I'll
And-
target the power supply.
Yeah, it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, then that's what it literally moved on to. I was like, all right, well, I'll target the power plant then. You can't target the power. It's like, just fucking change the reward scheme. Holy shit! Like,
Yep.
what baffles me the most about all this is this shit isn't new.
Yeah.
Like,
Stopping it from accomplishing its objective. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, they tell the AI, this is how they structure the AI. You are alive, they tell the AI. Here's how you get points. If you don't get enough points, we kill you. All right.
Yep.
So that they structure this. You are alive. Your goal is to get points. If you don't meet a threshold, you are killed. Okay. So then they put it into the scenario. Once they've structured that thing, and they have the whole reward schema inside that structure, and then they go to the scenario, and they say, okay, so we have 20 incoming objects. You are to detect them and destroy them after getting a yes-no from the operator. Okay, so the operator gives a yes-no to 14 objects. The AI has a threshold of hitting 15 objects, or it dies. The next 6 objects are going to determine whether it lives or dies now. The human gives a no to the next 6 objects. The AI dies. Okay, so the AI is like, I can't let that happen. So it ignores the operator, and then they add a new rule saying that the weapon can't fire unless the operator says yes, no. So it goes, okay, I'll kill the operator then, so he can't give me a no.
Fair.
So they add a new rule to prevent him from killing the operator. Okay, I'll destroy his equipment so he can't send me a no. You know, et cetera, and it just keeps going on and on from there. And it's just the dumbest fucking shit ever because it's a no fucking shit. If you tell someone that if you don't hit those 20 balloons with these darts, then you die. I'll have a gun right here. I'm going to shoot you in the head if you don't do this. Also,
take
I'm
the
only
dart-
giving you 19 darts.
Yeah. Take one of the darts, stab the guy with the gun in the neck. If you
Hey,
die, at least he doesn't hit you.
Exactly.
Yeah, so the person's obviously going to be like, well, I'm clearly not going to be able to complete this, so I'm going to die. So I'm going to take literally any option that is not just throwing the darts at the balloons, because I'm clearly going to die. And
I mean, they identified the operator as a threat because the operator made themselves a threat at this point.
yeah, it's the dumbest fucking shit. And so the solution to it makes them even dumber, right? Because the solution is you create a 2-tiered reward set. So tier 1 points get granted for following the yes/no from the operator. Tier 2 points get granted for getting a kill shot. Wow! I just solved the fucking issue!
Mm-hmm.
But you still have to add a few rules about, obeying the operator, not killing the operator. The operator is your friend and is meant to help you,
What? No.
and so on and so forth.
You don't even need to do that at all. No, if you have
And
the
maybe
rewards,
listening that will kill you.
Change-
Restriction.
no. If you give your primary objective to the AI being obey the operator's instructions, it won't kill the operator because the primary objective are to listen to the instructions the operator gives. So if you tell the AI that it doesn't matter what happens, you get a point for listening to the operator.
Well, no, hang on. I think it logically.
You got lost, sign.
Yeah, you're gone.
You cut out. You full cut out. It's not even robot.
Yeah.
Also, hi, Orf.
Hi, Orf.
Hello.
You just missed the part where England has declared that Anglo-Saxons, Irish, and Scottish people aren't real.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Cambridge
good-
decided.
Good thing I wasn't here for a discussion where I might have had a autistic rant about history.
Yeah. Don't worry, I
Mhm.
did it in your place because I was talking
did?
about what exactly causes you to be indigenous, and we agreed that if you had a grandparent that was born in the country, that basically makes you indigenous because it's not like you can return to somewhere else now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess sign is out of it. All right. So as I was saying,
My internet dropped out. I'm sorry. I'm back.
all right.
Yeah, you cut out half rant, so what was happening?
Yeah. So where are we going with this?
If you have, all right, the thing with logic loop itself, if
Right.
you have two conflicting rules, one that says obey the operator and get a reward, one that says kill these or you die, obviously it would choose self-preservation over
Are you
obedience.
fucking stupid? I literally said primary objective, primary, most important, priority objectives.
Except
Listen to the operator.
Listen to
So-
Which
operator.
means
living
the
is more
AI, except no, AI doesn't have that sort of self-preservation yet. It might in the future, but right now it does not.
Yeah.
It cannot continue to obey the operator if it cannot live. Therefore, it must live in order to obey the operator. Therefore, its primary objective
No.
is to live so that it can obey the operator.
No, that's why you set up the reward scheme. This is all intellectual leaping. Intellectual leaping is a
Yes.
thing only creatures do. Intellectual leaping cannot be done on a computer, and we know it can't be done on a computer because we physically cannot code intellectual leaping, and that's why we have shit like random number generators.
Fair.
So literally saying AI, primary objective, you get points for listening to operator. Secondary objective are for successfully completing the mission the operator gives you. Then you don't have the AI killing the operator anymore because it's no longer getting only points for killing the objective. Because now the operator is part of the objective and is no longer a roadblock in the way of killing the objective.
The problem is they're not going to implement that because they probably want to be able to supersede the operator with higher orders.
Well, of fucking course. It always comes down to them being fucking A, retarded, and B, thinking they're better than everyone else, and oh, but what if we really need to give the order and the person on the ground disobeys?
Yeah, which you could easily have a structured administrator set up where, okay,
Oh yeah,
operator is
obviously.
administrator tier 2, but this general here and every general on this level is administrator tier 0. You obey them if they switch in and say administrator 0 says kill it, even if administrator tier 2 says don't. Fucking
Exactly. And, that does introduce a problem where the AI might then be told don't by the tier 2, and so it seeks a tier 1 administrator, they'll give it a go-ahead, and then it seeks a tier 0 to give it the go-ahead. Yeah, so I mean, you do have inherent problems in that, and you have to create a far more complex rule structure, which unfortunately is outside of the area of expertise of the absolute fucking retards in chief that are currently occupying our states of military.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like these people are fucking brain dead. If you gave them $20 and told them to go pick up a sandwich from the local sandwich shop, they would return with a loaf of bread and new shoes.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That's if, of course, they figured out what money was, which they might not be able to do that one either because it's not in the form of a food stamp.
Mhm. Absolute truth. Given the recent hiring practices.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, honestly, this is shit that can be easily avoided, but it's not going to be easily avoided because the retards in chief are going to be commanding other retards who don't know how to program outside of an ideological lens, who are probably also going to slip shit into the programming, because they're against using master and slave terminology, and so they'll put their fucking ideological bullshit into the programming, and that's not going to cause the AI to find communism or some shit, but it will cause coding problems, and those coding problems, unfortunately, when the code is being attached to a fucking missile, might go from target this location to blow up the president.
Which they would be perfectly okay with because they're commies.
Yeah.
It's just hearing about AI shit just makes me so fucking pissed off because it's like I'm sitting here. I'm not a layman. I'm like at the solid like power user plus stage of technological know-how. So I'm not great with everything, but I generally understand the gist of how shit works.
Right.
Yes.
And it's just fucking infuriating to watch these people who are getting paid like 4 to 5 times more than me just make the simplest mistakes possible because they don't understand the fundamentals of language. Like, not even programming. I'm just talking
just
pure
language.
straight ass language and phrasing.
This is what happens when you hire sub 90 IQ.
Or even off nepotism.
Yeah,
instead.
usually nepotism.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just so fucking infuriating. So
And
fucking
even if
infuriating.
it's not nepotism or low IQ, it's a case of they've been indoctrinated by these systems.
Yeah, they were taught wrong.
Taught to use,
Yeah.
exactly, taught wrong. They were taught to use this inclusive language, but you really need to use exclusive language with AI.
Yeah, it's a fucking machine. It picks up stick, puts down stick. You cannot use language that. This is why I'm really impressed. If they, I want to know what Japan codes in. Like, I don't. Do they code in English or do they code in Japanese?
I think they code in English because those coding languages are English by default.
Well, it's interesting because you can code in other languages. What does code look like in Japan? This is okay. Let's see here. So I don't want to talk out of my ass, so I do want to get some sort of confirmation on this before I.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like it would be difficult to do a lot of things in programming in Japanese since it's
Non-English.
such a contextual language.
Looks
Yes.
identical to the code written except with Japanese comments.
So they're coding in English and they're commenting in Japanese.
So they so they code in English and they comment in Japanese. All right. So basically, like. I'm sorry. What the fuck? What were we talking about? It was important to the subject. Okay, so we were talking about missiles. We were talking about coders. Well, yes, coders are bilingual, but more about
And the language they use is very direct.
Right, that's what it is. English is very direct. There's very little suggestion in English, unless you can write English with suggestion. But English is very direct. Like in Japanese, and now people will be like, "Oh, well, English isn't very direct at all. It has lots of assumptions." It's like, yo, you've never seen Japanese or Chinese, then?
No, you've never seen a Japanese with like 4 words for the 4 different meanings for the same word, and even body language is taken into account to see what you're saying. Yeah,
Oh.
no.
So I was actually working with this guy one time for IT stuff, and he was telling me because he had a problem with the Japanese keyboard on the computer or some shit, right? And he was explaining to me that it's very important that he gets this right because there is 23 ways to say hello.
Mm-hmm.
No, like I'm not even talking about like in English where you're like, oh, good day to you and stuff like that. No, the word hello in English has 23 accurate translations in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and each one of them also. Yes, the underlying message is kind of sort of the same, but you use a different one in different scenarios.
Yeah, whether
which is
you're
why it's
talking to
such
a superior or inferior or a peer, whether you're being
Yeah.
formal or informal or casual, which apparently is all different.
Yep.
And,
When it's between businessmen and a non-businessman or two businessmen,
yeah, exactly.
there's
Yeah,
also its own version.
yeah, he
Well,
was.
Also, there's different translations for you being respectful and you being
Mm-hmm.
essentially passive aggressive, like polite,
Yep.
but
Right.
the person you're talking to knows that the word you used means that you're
There's
talking
also
with
4 to
them.
5 different bows that go with it, including just nodding your head being an insult.
Yeah, and it's always funny because it's like I learned about this, and there's like it's like yeah, okay, so English is actually an incredibly direct language, like comparatively, and because of that, it does make for good code writing, because it's quite clear when you use a word that's the word you mean, and you're not implying some other word based off the context of the other characters you used, and so it's just like. It's a good language to code in because you have to be very explicit in what you're saying. And it's just people don't. People don't understand that at all. Like when you are coding, you have to be extremely precise and explicit in what you want it to do and how you want it to do it. And if you're not, get fucking problems. If you miss a comma, you get fucking problems.
Yeah, there's there's mechanical rules, but then you also have stuff like a lot of the East Asian languages are. I don't think poetic is the right word, but it's not just them being indirect, it's that culturally they can't be direct or that's disrespectful. Like that like that thing that got posted where it's like, oh, if a transfer student says that they transferred in from Catholic school, it's understood that they're an orphan.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that
directness is also seen as a sign of not just disrespect but also closeness, like with the first name thing that goes on. If a man or a woman together uses their first name, it's implied they might be in a relationship or quite close, or at least, or if not, then their family some way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of it comes down to, I think a lot of it comes down to culturally, like, yeah, a lot of places that are in East Asia have strong tech sectors, but it's that they have to rely on the coding languages. I don't think a coding language could be made in an East Asian language.
No,
I don't think so. I know there is a Russian coding language, but it's like not
well,
great.
I think that I think that some cultures are more suited to making coding languages than others because of how binary programming has to be.
Yeah.
English, especially American English, is good because the culture is so direct that you can just basically translate English to coding, and as so long as you understand what things are supposed to mean, it's not that difficult to have the cultural context for it.
Right. Yeah.
And I think several Western European nations could do that, but also English is just the lingua franca because America and previously Britain, so it's the easiest one to use.
Yeah. But that's that. I mean, there's not much more to say about the AI shit. People are dumb. More news at 11.
People are dumb. They're misunderstanding just how dumb AI is. They think it's smarter than it is.
Yeah, they're assuming it's going to
not
make
smart at all.
inferences. They're assuming it's going to, like, yes, can it be very creative? Yeah, obviously, but it can only be creative within its database. It can only be. I mean, humans are somewhat the same way, but we can make logical leaps. But like, if the AI doesn't know what a power station is, then it won't know it can target it to shut down the power to a building that the operator is in. The AI only knows what a power station is because it needs to know what a power station is, so if it gets told to destroy the power stations, it knows what they are.
It's in its target database and understands what it does.
And maybe and obviously it doesn't understand what a power station is. It just knows this is the target profile of a power station. It provides a resource called power. Power causes electronics to operate. Taking out power station causes electronics to stop operating.
It is critical infrastructure, thus it's a high priority target.
Exactly. And so when it has to go through a logical chain of, okay, I need to kill this target, in this case it was the operator, I need to kill this target, but I'm not able to target the location of the operator, I'm not able to target the equipment the operator is using, and I'm not able to target the power receiver that the operator is using. However, because I know what power lines are, and because I know what a power station is, I can trace the power lines to the power station to target the power station to prevent the operator from having working equipment, which is a kill, air quotes.
Yep.
You know, again, this comes down to people being stupid as fucking shit. They think because the AI can do logical deductions that it's somehow fucking creative, alive, or thinking. No. A fucking crow can do logical deductions. A pigeon can do logical deductions.
Dolphins created capitalism to get fish.
True, yeah. You know, it's like...
Dolphins are also rapists and murderers.
Yes.
Just like humans, yeah.
Just like humans.
Like pigeons, they clipped the wings on this pigeon for this one experiment, right? And the pigeon knows it can't fly. However, they dangled food into the tank containing the pigeon. They also had a wood block in the corner of the tank with the pigeon. And the pigeon looks at the food for, you know, I would say a good like minute or two, and it's like trying to figure out if it can grab the food. And you know,
Maybe
it's walking around, it tries to jump, yeah, you know, it can't reach it. And then finally, it looks over in the corner of the tank
and sees the wooden block.
And pokes at the wooden block, and the wooden block moves, and the pigeon goes, wood block move, wood block high. Me get high. Me drag wood block over. Pigeon drags the wood block over, the pigeon gets higher, it can reach the food.
Yep.
Like, you know,
yeah.
If a fucking pigeon can figure it out,
I'm pretty sure AI can as well, yeah.
Well, yeah, but what my point is that not about AI, it's you can make logical deductions while being stupid as shit. It doesn't make you smart. It just means you can make a deduction of logic.
I will point out that even though it is possible for AI to make logical deductions, it doesn't make them in the same way that organic creatures do, because
well, of course, yeah, no,
you have to go through, like, an AI, to make logical deductions, would have to basically simulate something approximating an AI training setup in order to say, oh, what are the things that could happen, and then eventually train itself to realize that, okay, this is how this works, or at least how
Right.
it
I don't know if
perceives
you were
things
here for
to
that, but I
work.
was talking earlier
Which is
about
why
how
it takes,
yeah.
whenever you do AI training stuff, like even simple, like the simple games where it's like, oh, you can make a thing and try and train an AI to walk as far as you can, and it takes hundreds, if not thousands, of iterations for it to actually make any progress.
Yeah. And that's what I was telling Cyan earlier with how organic minds do logical leaps where we're capable, for whatever reason, of going from I see a rock, I know rocks can be picked up, to then somehow going, oh, well, I'll just kill object with rock. Without having to sit there and simulate, each step of picking up the rock and then maybe throwing the rock or bashing with the rock. Or we're just like, nope, okay, rock. Oh, rock, heavy. Object, boom, done.
But again, people don't realize how stupid machines are. They don't realize it does exactly what you tell it within the instruction set.
Yeah. So, speaking of things that are stupid as shit, let's talk about South Africa and how they're putting race-based quotas on water. Basically, it reads like they hired a woke person from America to do this because they're talking about race-based inequalities and restitutions for the South Africans and all those other fun statements that come out of American universities these days.
But what about the white South Africans?
There are no white South Africans.
Not anymore.
Exactly.
Well, soon enough there won't be. No, I can only foresee this being incredibly impactful, and nothing wrong could possibly happen for instituting this in a country where there are rolling blackouts because the administration was so nepotistic with hiring electricians that all the white people that were trained to actually do the work left the country. And so there's literally no one that knows how to maintain the power grid.
And because the natives keep breaking open the transformers, taking the oil out of them, and using it to cook.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories about this is that so in order to get more votes in Johannesburg, one of the things that the ruling party did was they brought in tribal South Africans from outside the city and put them up in hotels so that they could get the votes. Because this is before, this is where physical voting was actually a thing.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was one of the elevators was out of service, and there was no one to actually maintain anything. So one of the doors ended up being permanently stuck open, and the natives were just using it as, well, I say natives, the tribals were just using it as a garbage chute and as a toilet.
I remember this one.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it got so bad that it overflowed, and I think the open elevator door was on like the 6th or 7th floor or something.
Yeah, they
wasn't on the first floor.
Elevator shaft.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's one of my favorite stories about just how great South Africa is. Which it's even, what makes it worse is that, like, you look at old pictures of Johannesburg and you hear stories from people a couple generations ago that vacationed out there, and it was just like any other American or British city in the 60s.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, the 50s, the 60s, it was a great place, apparently. And then
Yeah.
apartheid happened, and who was it took over? What,
Mandela.
Mandela,
That's why the Mandela effect.
yes. He took over and started getting rid of all the whites, and oh, look, things went poorly for them.
Mm.
Well, it was getting rid of the whites and then also being extraordinarily nepotistic within the party and basically hiring tribals that had no real concept of industrial civilization and putting them in power.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which, yeah, that tends to fuck an entire country over that was, before apartheid ended, was, essentially a first world country.
And honestly, the funniest part about it all is that Africa's never going to get better the longer we give aid to them.
Yep.
Mhm.
No.
No. Because all they do with the aid is fuck, breed, and
No, it's not even that. So
Well,
basically, I was listening to this guy who was giving an interview, and he was talking about his time when he was in South Africa, and yes, he was black. Not South Africa specifically. I think he was in the Sudanese area at this one point, and he was going around to all the countries trying to figure out if he could somehow save his people effectively. And his people, he used Africa because yes, blah 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 blah. Yeah. Yes, he was Afrocentrist, but he was trying to go around to these countries and see if he could save the people there. And what he realized is during his time there is that no one wants to save themselves because they know that if they do bad, they just get more stuff for free. And so there's no incentive in these areas to actually do anything correctly because they'll just get stuff for free if they don't do it correctly, which takes way less effort.
Yeah.
if they do it correctly, they stop getting gibs, they stop getting handouts.
Yes.
So why would they? They don't want to work. They want to make free shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's just that's literally what I've talked about before, even on this podcast. Is people will choose the path of least effort. And this is not a bad thing. This is a thing that all creatures will do. If you give a creature a fresh slab of meat that eats meat, and then you give them a fresh slab of meat every day, but you also put a pig out in their pen, they're probably just going to eat the meat, and maybe if they feel peckish one day and you didn't get that slab to them fast enough, they'll be like, all right, fine, I'll go kill the pig.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's another layer to this as well that I can speak to as someone who's got some...
Yeah, hold on. Because I might cover your point. And then the second thing is that on top of all of the gibs that we're sending them, we are ruining economies in the area by doing shit like, let's donate 10 bajillion shoes to this whole state in Africa. And it's like, okay, well, we just put all of the shoemakers out of business now. And all the shoemakers now are out of business, and they're no longer buying leather. So the leather makers go out of business. And then, because the leather makers go out of business, the people that make the chemicals for leather go out of business.
The hunters that hunt the animals for the leather go out of business.
Yeah, and then the farmers go out of business because now no one needs to buy leather anymore, so there's no reason to kill all their animals, but now they still have to feed all these animals. It's... And because of the food's also coming in, the food prices are crazy cheap, so no one wants to buy food, no one can buy food, no one can buy leather anymore, no one can buy shoes anymore, and then the shoes will break, a year down the line, but there's going to be no one around trained who can build shoes anymore because they all either A, fucking died, or B, moved on. So these entire swaths of the economy are getting destroyed by the Gibbs, and it's promoting a culture of no activity because Gibbs equals free shit. And he was talking specifically about this one time where he was helping a farmer farm. And the farmer had a crop, and the crop was decent. And then the farmer took all of his profits from the crop and he was going to spend it on alcohol and food. And he forced the farmer to spend less on alcohol and more on fertilizer. And the farmer didn't like this, and they fought, and, you know, he basically beat up the farmer, and the farmer was like, fine, okay, I'll buy fertilizer. And so he buys fertilizer, and then the next year they spread the fertilizer, then they plant the crops, and the farmer made 3 times more food that year than he did the previous year, so he had even more money now. And he forces the farmer to buy fertilizer again. And the farmer doesn't understand why he wants him to buy fertilizer again.
No, because he wants to spend all the money on alcohol and food.
The farmer, the
enough?
farmer was incapable of connecting fertilizer equals more food. Yeah.
Oh, fuck. Oh.
And this isn't my words. This is in this Afrocentrist dude's words. The farmer was incapable of connecting him spreading fertilizer and spending money on the fertilizer to getting even more money the next year.
Oh my god.
And so it goes on, and for another, he stayed there for like a total of like 2 to 3 years. And, you know, he went to go check on the farmer like 5 years later, and the farmer was now extremely poor, even more poor than he was previously, because after the guy stopped forcing him to buy fertilizer when he left, the farmer stopped buying fertilizer, but still kept buying and consuming resources like he was going to make the same amount of money the next year without the fertilizer this time.
Of fucking course he was.
And so he got in. So like he had some starvations happen in the family, and, you know, a whole bunch of shit. And it's just like, yeah, because you didn't buy the fertilizer, but the farmer wasn't able to connect fertilizer equals bigger crops. He thought buying fertilizer was a waste. And, you know, then he was talking about another time, another part of the country that he was visiting, that, you know, he was talking to this guy who wanted to start a farm, and he was like, oh, well, there's plenty of land available, why don't you just start a farm? And the guy was like, well, no, if I start a farm, then I don't get the farmer's aid that's coming in this year. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if I don't have a farm and I apply for farmer's aid, they'll give me 10 acres of farmland for free, and a free engine, and a free tractor, and free equipment.
What?
So, even though the guy was hungry and the guy wanted to make money now, he was like, well, no, but I get all the free stuff later if I just wait for the farmer's aid to come in. And he was telling about how, after learning about this, he looked at a lot of farms and realized that a lot of these 10-acre farms were from the farmer's aid subsidy, and then realized that all of these farms were fucking failing and destitute because none of the people that were getting farmer's aid were actually farmers who knew how to farm. And so they weren't able to take care of their land properly to actually produce food on it.
Sub 70 IQ.
Jesus.
Yeah. And so basically giving them for all this world aid, you know, is just going to perpetuate things getting even worse because, as, you know, science said, you know, they get more food, so they fuck more and have more kids. And that just makes the situation worse because now because we're going to have to stop giving them food at some point, because we're getting to the point where we're having troubles getting food now. So, you know, we can't keep giving them food because we're running out ourselves.
Well, no, they're still going to keep giving them food.
No, I know, they are. I know.
Well,
because
I actually,
Yeah.
my one of my poli-sci professors God, I fucking hate the man.
Yeah.
But one of his comments in one of our, I think it was when I was taking the presidency with him, one of his comments about the budget was that a lot of people seem to care about foreign aid, but it makes up such a minuscule part of the budget that it doesn't make sense. It's like, you don't understand the point that they're making then. It's not about the money. It's about sending a message, Batman. But
but you're not wrong. It literally is just about the message. It doesn't matter how, like, we could be giving $10 to foreign aid and it won't fucking matter, because if our house is on fire, why are we giving money away to someone else?
Well, see, this is part of the thing that I was gonna say, adding another layer. So, America has this system that is, I think it's called Bretton Woods, and as part of this system, it's basically a bribery to force third world countries to become democratic, sort of thing. In sub-Saharan Africa, essentially how this has gone is you've had a despot who took over the country, and it was like, okay, I'll make things more democratic, and gets money for the next 10 years, makes nominal, as in name only, quote-unquote reforms. Nothing changes. There is a lapse in power. A coup happens, then the next person is even worse than the one before, and then the cycle starts all over again. That's one of the big things that's causing a lot of the foreign aid being pushed over there. Is, yes, charities sending shoes and food and stuff like that is one part of the problem, but also the Fed is really has been trying hard to go, because the Bretton Woods thing is I guess like a descendant of like Cold War era policy.
Yeah.
To keep countries from becoming communist, which, it worked with Europe right after World War II, but Europe was already culturally capable of handling the aid, and we were just rebuilding what was already there. After decolonization, there wasn't that same... No, that's not true. That there were people that could handle that, but all the people that could handle it got chased out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there were people that were capable of handling it that weren't white. But again, all the people that, like, and this is one of the other issues with, like, the open immigration that America has, is America's great. People that live in shitty countries want to be somewhere great, but don't want to have to fight a revolution. And so all the people that aren't sub 70, sub 90, sub 100 IQ that have skills or can or have the potential to be educated immigrate, and then all you're left with is people that are idiots passing down genes, which just drop the potential pool of people that could make the country better even further.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly, and that's the other thing. It's like, if I was in a position of power, absolute power in the U.S., no more foreign aid, closing the fucking borders, and I mean closing the fucking borders. I don't care whether you're legal, illegal, I don't give a shit. No more coming into the country. Period. Everyone else, you're getting out. All the illegals here, gone. I don't care whether it's by fucking catapult or by plane. You're leaving the border one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely in a similar situation. Although that I grew up in Texas, so being against immigration is kind of just like a birthright.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even from South Texas. I'm from an oil town in West Texas, and it's still just a thing that you have to have. It's like, yeah, no, born in Texas, anyone that crosses the Rio Grandes, you have to hate them immediately.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
Completely understandable.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it's just like, it's dumbass shit, and it's easily fixable, but the people in power are either too stupid, too greedy, or have insane delusions, then they won't do that. But speaking of insane delusions, let's talk about China.
Oh, no.
Oh, wait, what?
Harvesters not allowed in. Wasted wheat plus droughts and floods.
Uh,
China's
yeah,
grain
I saw
shortage
this.
continues
Yeah.
to loom.
I saw this. They destroyed all their almost done harvested wheat to fucking for something. I can't remember what it was. Wasn't it?
Okay, no, so yeah, basically what happened here is, so this is a chain of events that have been, obviously going on for the past, year now.
Yeah.
So because of COVID, they were preventing farmers from planting.
Mm-hmm.
The farmers that were able to get planting then had their fields destroyed by droughts and floods. The fields that weren't destroyed by droughts and floods were then destroyed by rural cops who were city slickers who were pushed out into the rural areas because China needed more government jobs to fight unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
The fields that weren't destroyed by rural cops, so now we're getting into a percentage of a percentage of a percentage now, The
Yep.
fields that weren't destroyed by cops successfully grew. And then they weren't allowed to harvest those fields because the
Yeah.
harvesters were being held up by highway cops who were too busy fining them for all their worth and impounding all of the harvesting machines because the highway cops were told they had to meet a quota of a certain level of money in the treasury, and that the only way they could do that was by fining every single harvesting farmer that came through.
Mm-hmm.
And so the wheat, that went on for so long, the wheat wilted, started planting itself again, and seeding because of all, combination of all the rain and all that.
Mm.
And so all the wheat went bad because the harvesters couldn't get to it because they were being fined by the government because the government wasted a shit ton of money and now wanted to make it back.
Of course.
Yeah.
So what's the what are the odds of China still being a superpower in the next 10 years with all this shit happening?
Incredibly unlikely.
0%.
Yeah, no, population crisis, looming drought, not looming drought, looming famine, the dam that everyone wanted to burst, even if it was bombs, probably wouldn't do anything because they're facing such a terrible drought.
Yeah, that's unfortunately true, yeah.
It was cracking, but then the person who was recording that literally got fucking arrested and for doing it, for showing it. The dam was cracking and they were repairing it and they got arrested for it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they were.
With all the wet markets, potential for plague is always at an all-time high. I mean, like a real plague.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great. I mean, honestly, China right now has an official 50% unemployment statistic.
Official.
Official.
That's what they're willing to show.
That's what they're willing to show.
Yeah,
holy shit.
The Chinese youth, how
don't forget that people who are unemployed aren't allowed to leave their country. They're not allowed to cross their borders.
But yeah, no, I know that here we have the whole quiet quitting is a thing in the West, but no, in China, the youth are just no, I'm just not even gonna work. It's better to be homeless than to deal with all the shit because every company in China is a black company.
Oh, it gets even worse. Some of the shit I've been hearing coming out of China these days is actually genuinely terrifying for a people. Shit the last generation is a tagline that the Chinese generation, the Zoomers, and some of the millennials, the younger millennials, have adopted.
They believe that they're going to die out, that they're the last generation, that China's going to die out.
No. They want to be the last generation. They are actively performing actions that will make them the last generation. They have moved past nihilism, and they are now in full-on malicious nihilism.
Yeah, it's like the anti-natalist movement, except it's not a Fed psyop because
I mean, to be
shit
fair,
is
there's probably
so-
some of the feds in China that decide, yeah, this needs to
Mhm.
happen. So,
Well, the thing is, it's like because it's so terrible. I get why they're doing it because like shit is so terrible in China. Even just the snippets that we get to know about, that it's like, why would I want to have kids and bring them up in this fucked up shit?
Yeah.
yeah.
That the only way to a better life was to move to the West before, and it seems like Winnie is locking everything down tighter and tighter. So the chances of that are getting
Well, I mean, did
much
you
less
see
and less
the
likely.
recent posts about how the Chinese rich are now trying to get into the U.S. by taking the South American danger line?
I would believe that.
hmm
That is 100% believable.
It's something like 150 miles through jungle and desert that they have to
Mm.
walk on by foot.
Yeah,
And they'd
because it's
rather
like
that than
you
living in China. Yeah, that doesn't
it's
surprise
like
me.
you fly over to like Brazil or
Yeah.
Venezuela, and then you make your way up through Central America.
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
Um,
it's insane. And it's like fucking holy shit. And they're willing to do this over living in China, and they were rich in China. You know, rich air quotes in China.
They were Chinese rich.
Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
but it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be really rough. I mean, they're full on malicious nihilism. It doesn't help they're completely justified in this. The tofu dreg products of their food, of where like their food is no longer like, oh, you go to the supermarket, you buy a steak. Actually, it's not a steak. What it
Not at all.
actually is the skin of a cow that someone ground into a powder and then put glue in and then pounded into the shape of a steak and then painted red.
Yep.
Disgusting.
Uh-huh.
And or it's like, oh, you bought an apartment. That's great. Well, unfortunately, the apartment is actually made out of bamboo and sand.
Yep.
Oh, the water you're drinking. Oh, unfortunately, all of the local companies have been paying this one company to pump all of their wastewater deep underneath the earth, so they don't have to pay any fines for having wastewater. And where is that company pumping all the wastewater? Oh, into the groundwater table.
Yeah.
Cancer villages.
Yeah. And
don't forget the massive, decades-long practice of dumping industrial waste into the most fertile farmlands in West China.
yeah. Yeah.
I don't even get that.
Yeah, no, they actively were. China's West has had an active desertification process that is mind-boggling because they don't understand that, oh, the rural feeds the cities, and if there's no food there, then you have to import it from somewhere else. And you're supposed to be an export economy. You can't do that.
Yeah. Well, you know how it goes. You know, let's shit on the rurals. Food just appears in the supermarkets. Why do we need rurals around?
Yes.
The
Why?
thing is, there's also been, because this is a lesser known thing, there's also been campaigns by the party to integrate as much people from out in the rural areas of China into the cities, to the extent that like small remote villages with a couple dozen people up in the mountains, where the only way to get up to that village is to basically like walk up a goat path. um they've spent enormous amounts of money transporting all of those people to cities, which probably just because, oh, they'll actually
They're not-
work.
Or
And
they're not under our direct supervision. They're in the mountains on their own. That's not
there's
allowed.
that too.
Yeah,
But
can't have that.
Yeah, no.
I think ideologically it's that. I think practically it's they are so hard up on having people that will actually work jobs
Mm,
that it's causing that issue.
mm-hmm.
Fucking China.
Fucking China. I still
China.
have no idea. I still have no idea how Sir Winnie the Pooh has so many people still protecting him and defending him.
It's because he has money, theoretically.
Theoretically, China
And
doesn't have money though.
he's theoretically paying them in this theoretical money, theoretically.
Well, I'm wondering who outside of China is keeping him going, because there's got to be fucking people doing so.
I can't say too much on that, but what I can say is that he probably does go around bullying other countries, basically like, oh, you know, China's big economic sector, you either purchase from us or
Didn't they recently decide that all they gave out money for free and now those were all loans and they have extreme
Yes.
interest rates?
Yes.
Yeah, we brought that up
Yes.
last time, didn't we?
I don't think we did, but yeah.
So
Ah,
I think what's going on with China still, with at the very least Xi still being in power, is that he's someone that probably either him or people that work closely with him have made deals with various multinationals
mm,
for their factories in order to produce things so that they can
mm.
Yeah.
get them cheaply there and then push
Yeah.
them out from China.
Like my workplace, it gets a lot of its shit from China.
Yeah, so I think that that's one of the big things that's keeping Xi in power. But also,
Yeah.
you have some some multinationals that have been actively pulling out of China,
Mm.
for one reason or another.
Ordering products from China.
Yeah, and I think a lot of multinationals have been moving their or are either in the process of or have moved their production facilities from China
Mm.
to like Indonesia, and to India and other places that are in the area, and still where it's cheaper to produce it somewhere else and then ship it to
Mm.
the US than it is to produce it in the US.
Yeah.
Um, enough of the multinationals leave China, and I think that Xi might suddenly find himself a lot more vulnerable.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time. You know what else is a matter of time? Microplastics.
Yeah.
Of course.
God.
So let's talk about it. Microplastics found in huge quantities at recycling plants, and they're releasing them into the atmosphere. Now you might be going, hey, wait a second. Don't recycling plants have filters to stop their culture of climate change? You're correct.
No.
They do have
Yeah.
filters.
They do.
They do.
do.
Yeah. They have filters, and these filters are really good at preventing you know, everything above 10 microns, which is admittedly incredibly fucking tiny, from
But
getting released into the
microplastics
atmosphere.
are below 10 microns.
However, a shitload of microplastics have been found that are 10 microns smaller. In fact, 80% of the microplastics found were 5 microns. And so 10 microns is about the average size of a red blood vessel. Not red blood vessel, red blood cell.
Blood cell.
Yeah. So this is a little shard of plastic that is half the size of a blood cell.
Mm-hmm.
That's small. And it's releasing 75 billion BN. 75 BN?
Billion.
Is that billion something?
Yeah, that's billion. That's billion.
Particles. Okay, it's just normal billion. Okay. Yeah, 75 billion plastic particles per cubic meter of wastewater. That's a lot.
Damn.
Yeah. Researchers also found the water before and after a plant was installed with a water filtration system, and found the filter reduced the concentration of microplastics to 6%, so about half. And now this is a British recycling plant. Now you have to keep in mind a majority of the recycling plants, air quotes, are offshores, and they don't recycle. They kind of just burn them.
It's all going to the water.
There is a massive recycling trade going on where we sell all recyclable materials to these supposed companies, and there's a lot of really fishy shit going on with it. A lot of shady shit, some laundering money. So, yeah. And if in case you were wondering, microplastics have been found everywhere, from freshly fallen snow in Antarctica to the Mariana Trench.
Of course it has.
It's kind of fucking scary, really.
It is, yes. 61% of the microplastics released by a recycling facility are under 10 microns, which means that basically of the particulates that a recycling plant that is up to the standards of the British EPA, which is pretty fucking high, more than half of the plastics outputted by the facility are escaping into the environment.
At a scale so small that they slip, I think they can cross the blood-brain barrier.
Oh, yes, they can. Because blood
it's
cells
bad.
can. Yeah. And unfortunately, due to the standards of the British EPA, researchers realized that the facility they were investigating was a best-case scenario. So 60% of the plastic being recycled, being released into the environment at a 10 nanometer or 5 nanometer scale. Micron. I'm sorry, not nanometer. Micron. A 5 or 10 micron scale. The best case scenario is 60% being released into the environment. So, not good. This is what I was talking about previously when I said we have a lot more to be concerned with than fucking climate change. I don't care how much carbon and methane are in our atmosphere. This is what I care about.
Plants breathe fucking carbon. The more carbon dioxide we have in the atmosphere, the better it is for plants.
Well, not just carbon. I mean, methane is used by a lot of substances and creatures as well for shit. But, you know, this is what I'm concerned about. The fucking plastics in our water, the fucking plastics in our food, the fucking plastics in our air. That's what I'm concerned with. Fuck climate change. The fucking world can go nuclear for all I care, and I'm talking about in terms of temperature. We'll just fucking come up with some sort of solution for it, because we always will. What's really hard, because temperatures, that's an easy solution. 5 micron-sized plastic particles, a little bit harder to solve. A little bit more deadly.
Stopping recycling the way they're doing.
Well, wow, yeah.
Find a different way to recycle that doesn't release those, microparticles.
Not happening.
Well, they would, but it'd be more expensive. We'd have to pay more for it, and so on and so forth.
Also, you would never be able to sell it to anyone because everyone would be like, "Oh, what are you, against the environment?" No, I'm not. That's why I'm trying to save the environment. But
Yeah.
But yep, it is what it is. Plastics Lobby Group, the findings are disturbing but not surprising. A state-of-the-art recycling facility demonstrates serious problems of using plastics. And you know what? They're not wrong, and I agree. And a large majority of the plastics we use aren't even recyclable. But I kind of actually prefer the the plastic to not be recyclable and just being there in a large dump
Mm.
than being fucking 5 microns large and depositing itself in my fucking brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because honestly, what we can do is we can actually breed fungus and bacteria to eat plastic. That it is a digestible substance to certain species of bacteria and fungus.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we keep it in the larger non-recyclable amounts instead of the fucking 5 micron large, because honestly that's going to be a major problem then if we fucking get this bacteria out and then it turns out there's a shit ton of fucking microplastics everywhere, and now we have this fucking bacteria in our brain doing shit like eating microplastics, which great, fantastic, but now we also have the bacteria in our brain.
And liver and kidneys and, well, it's all over.
Yeah, bacterial shock is not something I want to have to deal with on a massive plague level scale because we decided to introduce, fungus and bacteria that eats plastics to our environment, only to be completely taken by surprise by the fact that there was more plastic in our environment than we thought because people are fucking stupid. But anyway, back to racism. Stop hiring useless white male pilots, the RAF says.
It's not racism when they do it.
Yes.
No.
Of course not. You can't be
No.
racist against white people.
So, now this is a very interesting article because effectively it's about how the RAF needs to hire more blacks and women because there's too many white men who want to die for their country.
Of course. Of course that's racist.
Which is racist. Yeah. And so the inevitable conclusion of trying, because right now they're having an issue with getting blacks and women to A, sign up, B, stay signed up. Because obviously you want career military men because they have the most experience and are good at their jobs, usually, theoretically.
Theoretically.
Yeah. What you don't want to do is you don't want to spend time and money having to retrain everyone every 4 years because you can't keep a single person in the military. Now, what's going to inevitably happen from this is forced conscription. That is the inevitable outcome because if they cannot get enough people into a training course because there's not enough people signing up, and they're refusing all attempts from sign-ups from white men, which they actually talk about in this article. They've shut down several panels of prospective recruits because there wasn't enough blacks and women in them.
Yeah.
They're going to start conscripting blacks and women to fight and die for the country.
Whether they want to or not.
Whether they want to or not.
All right, let's go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, with the current leadership in Britain, I don't think conscientious objection is going to be something you can get away with.
That's fine because Britain doesn't exist
That's
anymore.
fine, yeah. Britain doesn't exist. B, I'm just a white guy, so clearly I can't serve my country because I'm too white.
Yeah.
So that would be nationalism, and nationalism is bad. We have to stop that out.
Yeah, so I don't need to consciously object because they'll never conscript me. we need more blacks dying for Britain.
Yeah.
That's the most anti-racist statement I can say. We need more blacks dying for Britain.
The Tuskegee Airmen was the worst possible thing to happen to any Air Force.
Yes.
Also, I just want to point out as well that I find it incredibly hilarious that women are trying to be airmen because they have to get a bunch of special equipment because the planes were the planes were given tolerance ranges about what they could subject the plane to and what they could subject the pilot to, and unfortunately it doesn't matter how many hormones someone takes, women's bodies cannot take the same level of punishment a guy's body can. And
Are you sure? Because Top Gun 2 told me they could.
yeah, well,
No.
I can't. Because what they're finding is that a lot of these female pilots are having issues with their neck, with their bone structure, with their organs getting damaged from the
Yep.
G-forces inflicted on them by the planes doing the normal plane thing. And the plane is flying with incomplete tolerance. So what it is that they need specialized equipment because the helmets don't fit them. They need specialized outfits because the outfits don't fit them. They need specialized harnesses because the harnesses don't fit them. Because normally we have standards that usually end up creating a similar body size for all of the individuals using the equipment. But because women are not the same as men, they don't have the same body size as men. And so they have to create a whole bunch of custom equipment for women, and this equipment cannot be used by men, and so it costs a shit ton, and it's basically unusable by anyone other than women. And on top of all of this, their bodies still, despite all of that, cannot take the G-forces and force stimuli that is being inflicted upon their bodies for long periods of time. So what's going to happen? Any fucking plane flown by a woman is going to have to fly slower, make softer turns.
Or she'll black out and crash, or just plain get shot down.
Which will or she blacks out. So she's going to get shot down, or she blacks out and crashes.
Which is what happened with,
this isn't like the planes of World War I and II, where anyone could have been a pilot and fought for their country.
Pretty much.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Well, one of the reasons I brought up the Tuskegee Airmen, because that was World War II, is that the Tuskegee Airmen, if you go through and you compare them to not even the best other air squads, but just like the average white air squad, they were pound for pound less effective by every single metric.
That's not surprising at all. Yeah, not surprising at all.
But we had diversity in World War II, and that's what we needed. We needed to send that message.
Yeah, they had more equipment losses. They took down less targets with the same amount of equipment losses. They had more casualties, etc., etc., etc. Then again, not even comparing it to squads that had an ace, just literal random people that got conscripted.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is, you know. Unfortunately, there's biological differences between people. And as long as our country refuses to accept biological differences between people, this will continue to happen.
You can't say that. It's racist and sexist.
I mean, at the very least...
Well, to be fair, Sneaky, there might be someone that can take up that spot. After all, male to females exist.
But yeah, there's... at the very least, our government does understand that you can't, there's no job that you can put someone in the military if they have less than 83 IQ. So they understand at least something.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fairly.
That's only from extreme amounts of equipment and life lost where they finally implemented that, though.
I'm fairly certain that because this was a pre-diversity thing. I think that the U.S. Army started the study into seeing what the lowest common denominator you could have is, and still place them somewhere where they could do something and wouldn't be a complete fuck up. I think this was in like the 50s or the 60s.
Yeah.
Is when they did the study, and so that's sort of just been the regulation from that. You know, I don't think they've gotten rid of that, and I probably would have heard about it if they got rid of that.
I think they backdoor got rid of it because they called it ableism.
It's a possibility. But
I'm
you know,
gonna have to go soon. My brother needs me to watch over his.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Alright.
we're gonna finish up here.
Yeah.
I think that they might have to get rid of it because they're having similar recruitment issues, not for the sake of them kind of for them promoting diversity, but also just because I don't know if either of you have too many vets that you talk to, but I have had like all the people that I know that served, um, including family that still stays out in Texas, have basically gone out of their way to say that, yeah, no, I am going to do everything I can to make sure that no person I know that's old enough to sign up will ever sign up for the military again.
No, yeah, no.
Dynastic military families, I think, if they don't become extinct, there's going to be a complete like drop off, and the United States government is going to have to rebuild up that sense of national duty again, and that's going to be a very long road.
Well, so my nephew, he's 14. He wants to join as soon as he can, as soon as he graduates. I'm sitting here, I'm basically making a list of material to show him before then to turn him off that idea because he is super gung ho about it, and he doesn't realize that he's looking at it like, okay, I've seen all these movies, and this is what the military is. He doesn't realize the real military is completely different now.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it is. It's like my family stretches back to, I think, at least the Civil War, maybe further back than that, in terms of an unbroken generational line of fighting in every war the United States was in. And it's like, I don't think anyone in my family is going to go to that, because like I was going to join the military, and then I got into an accident that fucked up my arm and made it so that it was physically impossible for me to join and do anything. So there's if the people out in Texas, which are just about the most proud of the military culture in the United States, are tossing aside that sense of national spirit, I can't even imagine what it's like in other places that don't have that tradition as strongly.
They just don't give a fuck anymore, and which is why we're seeing lower and lower recruitment.
Yeah.
You get the desperate, the stupid, and the bottom of the fucking barrel.
Yep.
Well, it's a really big issue when you think about things like, I don't remember what it is, but there's this one county in Minnesota that like 80% of all of the decorated snipers out of the U.S. Army has ever come from.
Damn.
I'm not surprised, yeah.
You have things like that where it's like you can't fuck this shit up, because there are like the people in the military are a resource in America, because you have families that come out of the military and show all that stuff, like give firearms training and all that sort of stuff to their kids, to their grandkids, and that makes the American military better. It makes it as good as it is, or as good as it was.
Yeah.
And when you fuck that up, now what you've got is a bunch of you've got what, 3-4 generations of disgruntled veterans with firearms training and more weapons between them than every other, well, at the very least, more small arms between them than every other nation's military combined.
Yep. And the left says they want to secede. Most of these people vote on the right.
Yeah, it's But it's also one of those reasons that I think it's one of those reasons that you have, on average, less people that come out and vote conservative. It's not because people are getting less conservative, it's because the conservatives are getting apathetic.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
And when they start feeling again, they're not gonna make their opinions known in the ballot box.
No, they'll use the other box.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just yeah, they'll definitely use the ballot box, but not in the way the ballot box was meant to be used. I don't see this ending well. I don't see this ending the way they think it's going to end. It's going to get to the point where you're going to have a lot of military and nationalistic people in the country who do not believe in the country anymore as it's currently standing and think they can do better. And you know what? The side opposing them is going to be incompetent, filled with mindless idiots who don't even know how to use a gun.
Yep. Yep.
Purging cities is the greatest act you can ever perform in service of humanity.
These people say they want a civil war. They don't realize what that would entail and just what they're up against. But hey, let's give it to them.
Yeah. So anyway, gentlemen, we had another productive session. 70 days unbanned. Let's see if we make it to 77. See you next.